Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. We are recording.
Hey everybody, thanks for bearing with us. We do have news that Georgia does have her shell. So, hopefully we don't experience any of that lag. Oh, I'm out of here, out of the range. So my name's Adam Byers, alias on Twitter, and this is Tom Moore. Concealed, yeah. And this is RAWR. We're going to talk about the rapid assessment of web resources. And let's start. What we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of an introduction, introduce ourselves a little better. Tom's going to talk about web assessments, sort of the time tools and the targeting. Then I'm going to introduce you to the little DINOSAUR, talk a little bit about Python and its uses with pen testing, enumerations, things like that. Preparing the data, presenting it, and plans for the future. And then we're going to give a little demo, and then any insults you want to hurl at Tom, I'll go ahead and sit down. You guys can take care of that. So, as I said, my name is Adam, alias. Started with BASIC. As you can see, that's Antic Magazine. That's like early 80s, I think. But if you can see it there, the little pink text, it says that there are 10 free type-in programs. And that was my entertainment as a kid. I'd type those in, have a little, ASCII art game or whatever. I'm a blue team member for a Fortune 50 company. Love coding. I'm doing a bit with computer forensics, working with Cuckoo Sandbox, things like that. And that's really starting to be more of a passion. So,
My name is Tom Moore. I'm Concealed on Twitter. Feel free to hit me up on there at any time if you have any questions at all. I got my start into the underworld by playing around with VB6 and AOL projects, kicking people offline and doing little things in AOL chat rooms. I love the scene. Security kind of pulled me in when I started playing around with some of the stuff and actually trying to build it myself. So that's where I really got my hook into security. I am a red team menace for a Fortune 50 organization. We break everything that we possibly can so the bad guys can't, and then we make sure that gets resolved by our internal teams, and we kind of roll from there. We play back and forth very closely with our blue team. One, to see how quiet we're being. Two, to see how effective we are. And three, to make sure that they're watching. So we roll that way.
I got a young man in the back with a question.
So where did you graduate from?
Marsh University. So I grew up here, started out in the computer science major, and ended up in integrated science and technology when they kind of merged things over. So, yeah, I love MU. So I do not love creating reports, though. I don't know, that's a typo. I'm not sure exactly how that got put on the slide.
It says it right there.
I think he had something to do with that. I'm not a big fan of report creating. I do love my Russian bride. Her name's Helga. It's my AK. And she's my baby. So we'll go ahead and get into what I refer to as the trip T's, and I will be keeping my clothes on. The T's stand for targeting, time, and tools. So we'll go ahead and get started into it. When you're doing web assessments, you're going to go for fruitful items, right? You're going to look for things that are going to give you some sort of leveraging capacity over the network that you're testing against. So we look for admin panels, we look for SharePoint sites. Does anyone in here do pen testing at all, or do you desire to do pen testing? Okay, so if no one desires to do pen testing, I'm telling you, it's the funnest job in the world. You break it, tell someone else to fix it. It's awesome. Like, you don't have to do the hard work. It's awesome. Anyways, back to this. We're gonna look for the admin panels. We're gonna look for SharePoint sites. We're gonna look for internal services, HR, finance, legal. Those are touchy words here, I know that, but we're going to look for web portals that they've created. We're going to look for configuration pages, routers, switches, printers, things that are left wide open that are not secured. A lot of things on our internal networks today have web interfaces. A lot of networks and a lot of people, a lot of organizations do not protect these web interfaces. They do not centrally manage these web interfaces. A lot of these web interfaces are connected to back-end databases that you can usually get a shell through.
And the engineers that put this into place, they're thinking, okay, internal network, it's not facing the internet, we're pretty much safe here, right? The only people that are ever going to touch this are employees, right? So
they don't look for the internal attacker.
Yeah.
And they know me by name very well now. So we're going to look for things of that sort. We're going to look at the timeline. So web assessments, there are two completely different sets of web assessments. One is where you are attacking one specific web application. You're going after that web application, you're getting into that web application. The other is where you're kind of looking at it from a perspective of, I'm just coming in a full-blown penetration test against this organization. I want the lowest hanging fruit that I can find to get in, to get a foothold, and then I'll pivot from there and do whatever I need to do as that client. So this is geared more towards the second. It can be used for the first to find your targets when you're doing the enumeration, but this tool that we're getting ready to talk about is primarily geared towards the second. But we're gonna, through the timeline, we're gonna go through and we're gonna gather data. We're gonna do our enumeration, our intel gathering, any OSINT, open source information intelligence gathering that we can get. We're gonna perform that function. Then, to be able to work with what we've gathered, we have to format that. We have to go through, we have to put it in a usable format that we're going to be able to read and utilize and be able to find the real fruit that we're looking for in the process.
Because most of the time, you're not going to just throw one tool at it and it's going to come out and be in a format that you need. Usually you're chaining together different tools to look for different vulnerabilities or different things that could be used for escalation of privileges or even getting, that kind of thing. Yeah. So the data format's really important because it's very time consuming to port that over a lot of times.
A lot of the tools do not output in a friendly manner that works with each other. So we'll get onto that a little bit later. But so once we identify, after we've formatted our outputs from what we've done as far as enumeration, we're going to identify all the low-hanging fruit that we've found. All those admin panels, all the configuration pages, things that we found previously. And then we're going to go into the exploitation phase. And we're going to look for currently available exploits that are available for specific services or specific web servers, or as we saw in George's presentation, we're gonna go for exploits that we know are there that work, and because all we have to do is get in that initial foothold, and we can do all of the nastiness we want once we get into the network. But so we focus on the exploitation phase last. That's my favorite phase, but it's the shortest, unfortunately. And then I kind of pushed that down to the bottom of the slide. We have to do that reporting thing afterwards. As a pen tester, though, reporting is extremely important. That is our one deliverable that we give back to the organization that we're testing against that validates our existence of being there, right? So we do have to make sure that that report is usable. We have to make sure that it is something that they can gather information from and continue from there. Real fast before I switch to the next slide, because that has all the answers on it. Who can name?
Oh, first of all, who are all the students in here?
Primarily this side. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So who can name me 3 tools within any distribution that that are primarily based for web-based exploitation or web-based enumeration. Should be a pretty easy one. These guys are like choking at the bit. You know, any tools that you can use to kind of scan web sources?
Okay, well, we'll say this. So web assessments, anything from discovery, say finding those hosts, all the way to the end?
We'll throw you a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Come on, someone speak up.
Wireshark, yeah, you could do
Your
your
college
Wireshark
kid, you
find
drink a
hosts.
lot of beer. What happens when you drink a lot of beer or a lot of pop? Burp.
I'm just going to guess Wireshark.
Okay.
Wireshark is good for network-based enumeration and what's taking place across the network.
But you can find hosts based on the chatter on the network,
Yeah.
so we can give them that.
So if you see people connecting to the network,
But that was yours, right? So do you have 4 more?
just 2 more. Just 2 more. We'll just do 3.
You guys dropped the bar for this one.
Still want a t-shirt, so if I can.
All right.
Okay, well hopefully
We'll throw them out anyway.
Exposures, these tools, Jack?
Anyways.
Just now getting ready to-
Bill, do you know
Okay.
3?
Okay. So
Just kidding.
this next tool you may want to take some notes on, or this next slide. Some of the tools that I use a lot, and in my common everyday testing.
This is actually Tom during a pen test. So.
Yeah, I wear that's the West Virginia Ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
W3AF?
Yes, W3F. I didn't name all of them up here. This is just a few.
If that's a West Virginian ninja, where's the camouflage?
Well,
That's the deer hunting.
Okay.
he came in out of his slide. Now he's in his hacking pin.
All right.
We're going to assassinate colorblind.
I think that's actually a 386 DX.
DX2.
Anyway, so some of the tools that we use, Nmap. You should know Nmap, learn it, play with it. It's fun, and it'll leak a lot of information about web-based services. There are so many NSE scripts that are out there for it. For web-based stuff, it's awesome. Phantom.js is something that we utilize in our tool, but it is also an awesome library, JavaScript library for doing stuff.
So Nmap, and I don't want to digress here, but Nmap, you're scanning networks to discover hosts. Phantom.js is a headless WebKit that you can use to automate a lot of web-based things. For this, we're using it to take screenshots. So
Nic2 is an awesome tool. It's a Perl script, so you do have to have Perl support on whatever you're running it on. But it'll do a lot of different scanning, directory brute forcing, things of that sort. It'll either give you a lot of false positives, so don't take everything that it's golden that any of these tools put out. But usually you do find some jewels with Nic2. Durbuster or Cool Robinwood's Ruby script is a really awesome script that will go through and create a custom word list based on the text that's on the website and any metadata that are in the images on the website that you can use as a password brute forcing list against any login fields that may be on the site that you're looking at. Really slick little tool. Just real fast, Durbuster is another tool that goes through and brute forces directories. So hidden directories that the web admin put up there with, say, passwords to remind them how to log into other stuff, or I've seen all kinds of stuff with Durbuster, but it will brute force even if those directories aren't linked to off the main page. Sometimes you can find them and they have good, if you've got directory listing capabilities on it, you can get a lot of stuff there. WFuzz does a lot of the same things that Durbuster does. It has some more control as to how deep you can go. SQLmap, has anyone heard of SQLmap? With all the SQLi stuff that's been going on, SQLmap is a very utilized tool for being able to try to find SQLi or exploit SQLi or blind SQLi. Burp Suite is one of my favorite tools. It is a proxy, man-in-the-middle proxy. It's going to come on all your pen testing distributions. As far as the community edition of it, The only differences between the community and the pro is you're going to have some added functionality on the pro, but you can use the free version of Burp Suite to do a lot of your stuff. So you run a man-in-the-middle proxy, you see and can change the requests before they leave, after they leave your browser, but before they get to the server, and you can mess with some stuff really well that way. The data type proxy is another proxy, man-in-the-middle proxy that allows you to do that. Those are both tools that I utilize a lot. Metasploit is putting a lot of work into the web analysis and exploitation pieces of it. So these are tools that will come in handy if you ever get into a situation where you need to perform a web assessment. These are tools that you'll likely use.
All right, my turn. So, I'm not a pen tester. Obviously, you know, I work on the blue team, so we primarily focus on things like threat vulnerability management. You know, just taking care of the organization as far as, you know, the IDS, watching logs, making sure we've got automated alerts, things like that. It goes a lot more in depth than that, but I can't think of it right now. But I just want to give a little shout out to Python, on the right slide, of course. So a lot of pen testers and a lot of people that do, I guess, assessments for these companies, they are a great source for project ideas. So if you're more inclined to do a lot of coding and things, you can really link up with somebody that does these assessments. You can really help out your company, really help out the other areas of your team.
Who in here codes?
Yeah.
Learn,
Sure you do.
Learn to and learn to love it, because it will make you invaluable wherever you go.
Yeah, I just want to encourage you to take some training if you need it. There's classes. I mean, you don't have to, you know, be able to code your own apps or anything. Being able to write scripts is going to be invaluable for a lot of these tasks, a lot of one-off things to be able to test different vulnerabilities. So learn by doing, no matter how hard the task. This is one of my favorite pictures. Eric Joyner paints robots with donuts. That's sort of his running theme. And this is a coding session between me and Python. So really enjoy that. All right. So the way RAWR works, we're going to get into sort of the flow of how we do things. So the first thing you want to think about is the logging, because RAWR is designed to take you from the discovery phase, actually doing the discovery for you. Remember, we talked about Nmap, being able to find the hosts, tell you what's open, through service versioning, which is the TAC S capital V in Nmap. We can tell if it's running web services. And so RAWR is designed to take that and take you all the way to your analysis, or what would OWASP call it? What phase would that be? Is it the analysis
Enumeration
phase?
discovery.
Okay. To take you as far along as we can, we'll just say that. So back to what I was talking about. First, you got to figure out how you want to log this, how you want it to come out. The default, of course, is in log_datetime_RAWR. You can throw a TAC-Z on there. It'll compress it into a tar file. TAC-D, different directory, just a couple options there. This is actually out of date, but we can take the XML from an Nmap scan. So with an Nmap scan, if you tell it to output with XML, RAWR can take it in and parse that for the web hosts. It can take an Nmap input list, just a list of IPs in a file. It's I think it's return separated. This is a regular file, or TAC-in to use any Nmap range. Now, about a week, maybe a week and a half ago, somebody requested a tool that could do exactly what RAWR is doing, but with Nessus input. So, as of I guess about a week ago, you can now feed your Nessus files into RAWR. It'll parse out all the data there, and it'll actually go into one of RAWR's enumerations based on that data. And so the output from that scan is going to be the XML. we take that XML.
So a lot of the service versioning information will leak what it says, service versioning about the services as far as whether it's Apache, Tomcat, IIS, whatever services you're going after that the web backend is utilizing. So sometimes you don't even have to exploit the page. Sometimes you just need to exploit the service that's running on it. So this gives you that background information as well.
Yeah, and just the purpose of doing the enumeration is just to find out what's out there, so you can be able to tell your company, or you can find out on your network what you're advertising to anyone that's able to come inside your perimeter. So we take the XML output, we start our enumeration. As we mentioned earlier, Phantom.js, I know it's got tons of functionality, but the only thing that I'm plugging into it right now is the ability to take screenshots, and it does it really well because it's Java-based. We're extracting as much information as possible from the server response, down to your response codes, your metadata. I've actually got it to where you can plug in. It's based on regex is how you're pulling different bits of data out. You can pull out if there are password fields in the response. There's actually a column in the data that we'll show you in a second that'll show you all the password fields that were found in this web page. And to a pen tester, that's really important, because as developers don't always research all the different ways that can be exploited. SQLi, just one example. It's important to test that.
A lot of web developers will put out a site just because it came with a package. They don't realize that it's there, and that package may by default use HTTP basic auth, which is very simple to reverse with a proxy like we were talking about earlier, such as Burp. It's a base64 encoded string of username : password. So if you can build yourself a list using Cool or whatever, you can attack those password fields, and a lot of times you don't even really have to try to get into some of these networks because of the weak authentication. And being in the forensics type setting, basic auth doesn't report back to any parent authentication system. So you're not going to show up on attack logs on an IDS system for running a lot of password attempts against something that's not reporting back to an IDS.
And the same thing can be said for this entire enumeration phase. So this enumeration is regular traffic. We're making regular web calls. So after the initial discovery in which you're using Nmap, we had planned to run it through security. I need to show you guys, but it's very, very quiet, right? So I guess the implication is somebody can come and run this on your network after the enumeration or after the discovery, and you'd have no alerts pop up at all that they're actually going through and collecting information on each one of your websites. So that's a real eye-opener. To supplement that data that we're pulling in, we're of course I've got an IP to country list that we're throwing the IP against to tell you where the IP is from. Not really helpful for internal networks, but it's useful if you're a shared hosting provider and you want to see everything that's out there. defpass.csv is pretty cool. We've got about, I want to say 6,000, maybe 7,000 different default credentials for different devices, network devices. So in the report that comes out of this, you're going to see it'll show you all the default usernames and passwords it was able to find based on the data that was returned. TAC-B, you can use that to. Is anybody familiar with the Bing DNS lookup little trick that people do?
It's awesome.
IP colon something?
Yes, exactly. So if you go to Bing, put in the search field IP colon, and then put in the IP address of a shared hosting provider, or somebody who knows on shared hosting, it will return every DNS name for that. So.
So this is really fun, and if we had an internet connection, I really wanted to show you. But like,
You can't get on the one that's here. More.
I-
No,
I'm
it
having
was
trouble staying
refusing
connected.
connections.
If you try, unfortunately, Firefox was giving me hell. In Explorer, it would come up and open up the chapter
it's
portal.
homework. I want them to try this stuff and play around with it
Yeah.
because it is really cool. So go to a website that you frequent, okay, or ping it from your command line. Get the IP address from it. Go to Bing, type in IP : and the IP address, and if that website is on a shared hosting solution, it is very, very funny sometimes to see some of the websites that co-locate on the same solution.
We saw some of that yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, they did that with my site yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had
So funny.
300 results come back just from one shared hosting provider. This is also interesting on the forensic side of things, because I do a lot of malware analysis and follow-up. You can also throw this against a known IP address that's serving malware to see what other domains they're pulling up. And usually what I'll do is if I receive a piece of malware in the static, or I mean whichever phase of it reveals it, if I find an IP address or a host name, I'll research it with this to find out which other ones I may need to filter. So that's pretty useful.
And it's really, really good information if you have a client that is asking you to penetrate, like pen test their application, and they're on a shared hosting solution. Because you may not be able to get into their application. Logically and legally, you're not allowed to attack anyone else's, but you can at least show them the other attack surface that they're beside. Because most cases, they're not the weakest link in the chain. There's probably other websites on that same shared hosting solution that are extremely weak and very vulnerable that can be exploited to get back to their website. And sometimes that's a good piece of information for a client. You can say, hey, listen, your site's pretty secure. I can only get in this way because you can always get in. But these other sites are on the same server you're on, and this is why you're getting all of these pharmaceutical spam messages. You know, or
So if someone gains privileges on the shared hosting provider that you're also on, yeah, they've got access to your website and all the files there. And
Especially
everything
if
in the
they're
back.
sharing the file system and they're not properly distributed off.
True. I also saw
which is very often.
Right.
not long ago we were I was doing an investigation of a phishing email, and the shared hosting provider was infected. Well, I say infected, but it had the malicious Apache module installed on it, and so this thing was serving up that same Java link that links it to the malicious. I think it was calling it Goggle Analytics or something like that. But it was serving up that link on every page that shared hosting provider displayed for whatever domain. It was showing that link on it because of that malicious Apache module. And who knows, somebody may have gotten access through a weak website, loaded that module, and said, well, let's make some money off some clicks. So some good stuff for them anyway, millions at least. So the output, this is the cool part. So you've got the Nmap output, XML, the XSL. Does anybody know about that? Any of you guys know about that trick? How you copy the XSL. Actually, no, you don't have to copy the XSL. Oh, I'm out of range. But I want to talk to these people. Okay. Thanks. Okay. But so the XSL translates the XML into a web page that you can view. I think you've got a view of it. But so you can pull up the results of your Nmap scan into a nice little web page. It's cool because you can click on it and expand things and see what all your ports are open, all this good stuff. So it's not all just, you know, stuff scrolling through a terminal. It's actually, it's pretty cool. Anyway, so you've got the GNmap, which is the grippable stuff. It's neat for automation, and then the Nmap file, which is pretty much an output of it. So yeah, we got that. But then we get into the cool stuff. And this is really something that, again, blue team guy defending the company, working against the, working with the guys on the red team, the guys that do the pen testing. So he, getting some input from him as I was writing this, he was like, yeah, you know, if we had like a checklist, you know, of all this stuff. Okay, so we created the CSV. All the hosted information, customizable columns, of course, at the near the top of the script, you'll see something called FList, and it's just all the fields that are going to be in that CSV. So with what I was talking about earlier about how you can pull different things out of the HTML, it's easy to create a new column. I really should document this. Create a new column and then add a line that checks the regex for the word, WVU or something like that, to pull out that instance and put it in that column. It's really cool, really simple. So it's very customizable. I think he took the no-tech approach and added a notes field. Of course, nothing's being plugged into the notes field, so when the CSV came out, he would just pull the thing up, and if he had any notes as he went through each one that was interesting, he would just type them in the notes column because it was always empty. So it's pretty cool. I can't even see what I put there. Modular detection via regexes. I already said that. So we've also got an HTML report that comes out, jQuery driven. It's fully searchable, fully adjustable content view, make it bigger, smaller. You've got previews of the images. Just I did my best to make it as easy as it could to view all that information that you're pulling back, because you've got all your screenshots, all the info from each host.
With me nagging in the background.
Yes.
Because this was the primary reason that we needed to build this tool. There wasn't something else that I could find in tools arsenals that are out there for pen testers that performed the functionality of this and then gave you a usable format that you can go through, grep through if you want, pull it up in Excel, use your filters, filter foo, whatever way you work best. CSV is very, very portable. To be able to go to a Windows host or to a Linux host and to be able to gather the information you need.
And I always forget that part of it. This is cross-platform.
Yeah.
So you can run it on.
This will run on anything with Python. So
except for Android. I haven't tested on Android.
Georgia.
But
no, but so the other piece to that is, this is a tool that when you run it, you're going to get quality information back. You may have some false positives based on what InMap is responding with, but it's going to be something that you can work with. And the best thing of all is that this is very, very useful when you come to that reporting phase that I'm not so fond of, because it helps me keep everything straight and in one usable format.
So within your log folder or your tar file, you've got an images folder, cookies folder, and certs folder, and I bet you can guess what goes in there.
And there's also, now we've added robots.txt.
Yeah, there's a robots folder that I didn't put on here. But yeah.
I found one for Adrian's site.
I avoid
scanning.
Adrian. I have his site hard-coded
Adrian.com.
into it so that it doesn't scan.
It bypasses.
Like the click that it is. So this is the point where we take it for a spin.
All right, so again, we kind of already touched base on the what we're going to perform as far as a penetration test. We're going to do scoping. We're going to find out what we're allowed to touch, what we're not allowed to touch, stay within that scoped area. And we're going to do discovery to try to find out what's there, enumeration of the services that you've discovered, things that you can find that may be useful. Then you're going to go through analysis. You're going to go through and look for those pieces of low-hanging fruit. My favorite phase is, again, going to be the exploitation and then the reporting. Unfortunately, we were going to perform a live demo, and we're having all kinds of issues with our network connection. But I do have backup videos. So Georgia, you're not the only one that was having issues.
Are for lamers.
You had
I am a lamer.
much better luck with your demo than what we're having. It was actually going to be really funny, because I'm not going to point at anyone or name names, but there's a person in here from WVU.
Let's just say we have many megabytes.
I have a 56 meg XML file of a lot of WVU web resources that is it took too long to parse to get everything in. So
Let's just say I found a bug in the way I'm handling memory based on opening that Excel
yes,
file.
so we've diverted and we're going to utilize the scan that we ran when we gave a presentation and actually initially released this tool. And you may have heard of them. I did it again. They're
a new organization. It's government.
Yeah. So the TSA is not a very big fan of me when I come through with my big bag of toys. So we're going to go through real fast, and I'm going to show you what it takes to install RAWR. Granted, these videos are about 2 or 3 months old. We've added a lot of functionality to the tool since then, but this will give you a good idea as to how easy it is to install. And then I'll show you another video of us actually running the scan against, basically searching for, to see what the TSA had available. So this is Kali Linux. If you don't update, it works like a champ. So this is just a quick run through. I'm logging into my account, and
So while this is going on, we've
is
tested
that
it
is really
on-
small, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really small. We've tested on Windows 8, Windows 7, 3.1.1 for work groups. Not really, but I mean, a lot of different flavors of Linux. It is cross-platform. It's open source, so anybody can pull it from the repo.
So basically, what I'm doing right here, real fast, just to talk at it while it's going, is we're doing a git clone of the Bitbucket repository. The repo will be on our last slide that you can write down, or it's on Alias's shirt here. But we're doing a git clone. After we pull down the git clone, we run a rawr.py/tac check install. And what this will do is it'll go through and it'll say, okay, Phantom.js was not found. Do you want to install it? You say yes. It's going to go ahead and pull it down for you. It's going to pull down the defpass.csv, the other resources that it needs to be able to perform its scanning.
It'll check
procedure.
Nmap as well. If you're running 5.21, I think it is, it'll say, hey, you're not going to be able to do the SSL enumerate ciphers with this because the script wasn't in there at that point.
Yeah, so one of the other things it'll do is it'll go through, and that's another function of it. It'll enumerate the SSL certificates on the servers that you're scanning to see if maybe you can downgrade the security level of that HTTPS service. So I like HTTPS when I'm attacking stuff.
Yeah.
Python 2 or 3.
2.7 is what it was tested on. I believe it'll work in 2.6 as well. I haven't tested it.
But I like SSH. When I'm attacking something, it hides my attacks from the IDS. So pretty much everything between me and that host is completely encrypted. The IDS doesn't see anything in the middle. I'm silent. It's beautiful. So that's how long it took to install.
So basically, we just pulled down the latest DefPass, the latest IP to country, CSV, and Phantom.js. Pulled that down too.
So next is the video of us actually running the scan against the TSA. And we're just enumerating. Nothing was done to harm any of the members of the list that you will soon see.
Yeah, as a note, the only thing that is considered intrusive is when you're doing the strength assessment for the SSL ciphers. So,
Oh, wait a minute. That's why Hackett. That's why Hackett was late. My bad.
Short mouse.
Yeah.
Oh, what's
I
coming?
gave it up early. That's not cool.
where we found it was even more interesting.
Oh, God. You know, I got a couple for last year, though.
All right. So I'm running raw.py tac in because we're going to run an nmap scan against this host. or this scope, and then attack B, because we want the Bing results to see if there are any shared hosting solutions in that range. We want to pull back everything that's behind that. If you run RAWR without attack B, it's going to be like just punching in that IP address in the address bar of your browser. You will get the primary site that's listed for the server. There are probably hundreds of other sites behind that one that you're not going to see. You're not going to have visibility of. So we're going to run the attack B. I'm going to forward through this just a little bit. We'll just do some scrubbing. You see it starting to perform the scan. You see it discovering the ports that are open. We'll keep pushing through.
This takes a while.
It was a pretty big segment. So at this point right here, the scanning is completed. It's finished running all the service versioning to try to find out exactly what all is running. And then we're getting down to the silent portion of this tool. So the piece that was up here, the Nmap scan that's running in the background, that is visible on IDS. If you're doing this on an internal network, that is going to be seen by your IDS if you're not, or whoever's monitoring that is in good standing.
You have the option to pass it the stealth scan switch for Nmap so it slows down and.
Actually, the stealth scan's a lot. It's more common, so that it is.
A lot of IDS really are starting
pass
to.
time so that like it only pings a port like once every minute, so I'm more likely to evade the IDS.
You can
The
set
script is
timer.
very easy to modify. So if you want to go in, you can just modify that. It doesn't have that built in. Primarily,
The
I mean
timing?
that's definitely something
Yeah,
to
you
be
can
added.
adjust the time.
But yeah, the stealth something is something. The stealth scan is something that we've trained our guys to watch for very heavily. So we don't even use it anymore, partly because we know they're going to catch us as soon as we kick off something like that.
But as in demonstration of what I was talking about earlier, collaboration with our pen testers, this project is led by people that like, I guess like you, that would use it. So if you
Well,
if you want
there
that
are
as a
plenty of
switch,
organizations who
Right.
aren't watching.
No,
for-
I agree.
yeah.
It could definitely be added.
So absolutely. Just throw an issue out there, do the request, and I'll definitely add it if it's something that you want.
But at this point right here, what's taking place is it's starting to make the Bing request. This is an external request. It's going against Bing. Nothing is seen on the internal network. Nothing is seen directly hitting your host because we're querying Bing now. We're not even querying that. The other thing that it's doing is it's making valid HTTP requests to any services that are available. Valid HTTP requests are not going to be caught by an IDS or an IPS because they're valid requests. You're just making a lot of them in a very short period of time. So,
and these requests are cached as well, so you're not making repeat calls for the same IP if it runs across it. So,
I'm sorry.
and it doesn't make more than one call at once. So it just, yeah.
Keep running through this.
I'm trying to teach him. It's just that it's slow.
I'm not good with computers.
You wouldn't have watched.
All right, so
Okay. I hear you.
what
This
is
next
it?
slide's for you,
I
buddy.
think you went to Marshall.
Yes. So, but you can see it's going through and it's making those requests. And I'm going to speed this scrub along too because it goes through and makes a lot of requests because the TSA is on a shared hosting solution. It's government owned, so it's mainly government sites.
And it shares a lot.
We've made modifications to the script since this is run. Yeah, you can see. I mean, I'm just scrubbing through, but it's still looking. So we finally see that the scan is completed, and our output folder has been generated. And I'm just going to pull up the HTML output. So one of the main things that that we wanted out of the tool was to be able to.
Use a projector with a MacBook Pro.
This is from where I maximized that screen. So Let me just drag this up here. Oh. So this is the CSV file that RAWR outputs. So
Part of it.
and this is part of it. You can see you've got your IP addresses or the actual URI that's being called right here. When you get over into the host IP, it shows you the host IP that gathers on, what port it's running on. You can get over, you can see the host name if reverse DNS is enabled on that device. You can see the versioning information, whether or not it's also, is it doing cookies?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it'll tell you the number of cookies that are.
Showing you the cert, SSL cert information and strength, so that you can decide whether or not that's going to be a vector of an attack.
So when you're doing your follow-up and you're trying to find which one of these are interesting, you've got, well, we'll show you the HTML in a second, but you've got this up, and you can make notes. I mean, this is your checklist, right? At least that's how Tom says he uses it.
We see
So all the information that we've gathered is right here.
it just keeps scrolling over. These are all default passwords, suggestions that may be utilized against the service or the web application that's running there. So this is what you can use to be able to base your next phase of it. Because when you're web pen testing or when you're just regularly pen testing, it is a continuous cycle. You go through your enumeration, you go through your discovery, you go through the finding low-hanging fruit, you try to find exploitation. If you get exploitation, then you go through that process again once you get through that host. And you see what else you can get to. And it's layer after layer. You go through it. I'm sure you guys have heard the term layers, information or security and defense, or depth and defense. So
It's like the layers of the onion. You know, you've got different defenses, and it's layered.
just kind of go through that.
Yeah.
So this is, if
Which one is this? Is
Play
this
nice
the
with me.
TSA one or the?
this is the TSA. The WVU would have been really funny, but
A lot bigger.
yeah,
I have a legitimate question.
yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you for qualifying that. We're only taking legitimate questions at this time.
Well, see, I missed part of I actually missed part of the presentation because of the pressing issues. How do you scan against a target if it's a domain?
That's a domain.
You can feed
You
it.
have to know the IP address?
No, you can feed it right in. It'll take TLDs.
Yeah. Scanme.nmap.org. He's familiar with that.
Just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Everything's really hard to see, but so in a situation like this, there's functionality built into the tool. So we can go right up here to the top
Make it bigger.
and increase the sizes thumbnails. So when you're looking at text, it may be hard to tell what you're attacking, but the HTML report that's generated through this
Do image only. Click on
creates a very nice little interface that takes the screenshot of the site. It has it all there in one little report. You're able to just go through, browse through, and visually look at what you're going to attack and say, yep, that looks juicy. I'm going to go ahead and take that one. So one of the other functionalities that's built into it is say, this one has a login form. It wasn't necessarily caught because they're using some sort of a custom login field. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to, is that the plus button?
I'm pretty sure it is. Far
Yeah.
right.
So I'm going to click plus on that one. I'm going to keep going down through. We look at another one here. This is a login form. You can click on the images, bring them up. But say I want to attack that login form too. There's all kinds of stuff on here. Here's relativity. There's a default Apache page. yay.
Isn't there an admin page on there as well?
Yeah,
Find
let's
one?
see.
Tomcat server admin.
There's a lot of stuff. Wow.
Why didn't we see that
It's
before?
a sandbox, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't escape a sandbox. That's something I never understood. Why do they name it a sandbox? Have you ever played in a sandbox and been able to keep all the sand in the box?
No.
All right, so it's pretty accurate then, I guess. You can think about it. Here's a Ricoh printer that's been scheduled downtime since August of 2012.
I think the concept is little kids can't hurt themselves much in sand.
Right. Well, that could be it.
This is true.
But I mean, so there's all kinds of stuff on here. Anyways, I can go through these. I can click on these little pluses that are down here, and then I can come up here to the top and click on IP list, and it's generated a list with the IP address and the port number of those services that I feel are going to be useful to attack. And then I can go ahead and feed those into my other tools like NIC2 or things of that sort. We're going to be releasing a lot of automation tools to be able to work directly with this specific format. So you can just copy that into a text file, place it into the log directory, run one of our automation scripts that will automate NIC2 against all of the hosts that you decide you want to run it against, or automate Dirtbuster against all the sites that you want to run it against. Some of the more intensive and tools that you're going to want to really delve into some of those lower hanging fruit situations, and so it's going to help us be able to do that. It's multi-page, so it's paginated. If you have a lot of results, there's default IIS7. There's a lot of stuff that's out here, a lot more login prompts. And this is, here you go. Don't write down the IP address of that one because I guarantee you it'll get you in trouble. Make sure you're contracting with the government prior to playing with that one.
So it's got the search field as well.
War file. Oh, sorry.
Throw Apache in the search field.
There's a lot of stuff. So yeah, if we come up over here, you can search for something that you know is vulnerable. So you can run through that, and any site that returns a field that has the word Apache in it is going to go in there. That entire CSV that we pulled up, showed to you just a moment ago, is in the source of this HTML. So everything is Ajaxified. Ilse did an awesome job putting it through so that the searches that you're running are very fast. All of this enumeration, again, is done offline. You're not making additional calls out to those servers unless you decide to.
You're making me a little scared here. Remember when you're saying that TSA is on a shared provider with US CERT and FEMA?
That's what I'm saying. It's very, very funny to see some of the people that co-locate
The government can't pay for a separate server?
together.
Wow.
I know, right? They can't pay to finish off.
Well, and they may not, so I just clicked on the link that was on the far end, and it actually took me to a cached version of that specific site.
There's a lot of different, a
But-
lot of little things that I've got thrown in here, a lot of functionality. It's worth digging into and seeing what all's there. Because of, go ahead.
Well, you were mentioning default passwords earlier and pulling from a huge list. How does it handle like embedded equipment? If you scan a network, all this embedded equipment that has default passwords, but you can still set the IP addresses whatever you want. So you could like cause a denial of service attack by setting the IP address to be the gateway. How good is it getting into like those kind of embedded devices?
So we didn't move on into the exploitation phase with this tool. This tool is strictly for the enumeration phase of it.
Yeah.
This just goes out and collects all the possible usernames and passwords that you may want to try.
Okay, it doesn't
on your
actually
own.
try them itself.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so the only intrusive thing that RAWR could do is the SSL cipher strength testing. That's the only thing that.
This is taking a bite at a time, basically. I used to build this interface. I used to go through and take screenshots of all the web resources in an environment. Say you're dealing with a with an environment that has 100 web resources on the back end. To be able to go through, generate, perform your scans, pull all the information you can out of it, perform your enumeration, screenshot your services, put them into a pretty interface like this that gives you something visual that you can also give back to your customer. It took hours. It took forever to be able to do that piece of the work.
There's a link up at the top for the Nmap XML. Hopefully it comes up. Yeah.
So here's the Nmap XML that also is output. The XML file is modified again on the fly to, like, when the report is created, that it pulls a local XSL file into the log directory and then modifies the file path in the XML directory to pull that local XSL. So
So the log file is
if you transfer that log file to another machine or another platform, it doesn't matter. The XSL and the XML will still play nice together. You can still open it up in the browser. A lot of times, if you ran your scanning and stuff on a Linux environment, you transferred it over to a Windows environment to let someone else look at it, they'd see a big garbled mess when they tried to pull up the XML file, because if they tried to pull it up in a browser, because it didn't have that XSL to be able to parse with. So yeah, your XML file is another good piece of information here. We're going through, and one of the other things that we've done or are getting ready to release is just a function that is built into Nmap to filter out all of the systems that may be up but not have any services that we're interested in. So it makes this much smaller, but you can see the services that these are running on. I didn't run an extensive scan against this. These are only against the default ports that web services run on that RAWR looks for: 80, 8080, 443, 40, 443, I can't remember. 8443.
You guys, do you hit each IP with each port? So if they've got like a dev on 8080, are you going to get both?
Well,
Yes.
it depends on how you run the scan.
Okay.
So by default, yes, you will get both of those.
Okay.
But you can also, at the command line, FuzzDB, has anyone heard of FuzzDB? They have a really good list of the top, I think it's like 50 web-based service ports that are there. When you're at the command line and you run the command to launch it, you can do a TAC-P for a port space FuzzDB, and it will pull that FuzzDB list in. It'll automatically run against the FuzzDB default port list. You can do a TAC all there, and you can run a full 65,535 port scan against your environment. You have all that information still within your Nmap output, which is GNmap, XML, and the Nmap file. So you have all of that data there, but RAWR will only pull out what it needs for the web resources. So you can do two birds with one stone. When you're running your enumeration, you can run this with TAC all. You get everything that you wanted in the background for your Nmap.
So those are just
And then this will
shortcuts.
pull it out.
You can throw the word all in, FuzzDB. It'll also, you can throw anything you would normally throw at Nmap, like 80, 1 through 50 or whatever. So it'll pass that along as well. These are just little shortcuts you threw in there to make it.
As far as the ports, not necessarily
Yeah,
the other
ports.
arguments that
Yeah.
Nmap allows. But it's very, very, very full featured. We've tried this against small networks like CTFs with 5 hosts on them, run beautifully. I've run it against a network of around 20,000 hosts, and it was a huge file. But you would be surprised how many web resources companies have. Like, I'm serious. If you work for an organization that will allow you to test, ask them to let you just run it against the network. It's not malicious in nature. It's just performing the enumeration, and it will give your organization a much better visibility of how much of an attack surface that they have that they probably aren't even aware of. Because these are valid services. These are things Apache, 8443 things of that sort are not going to set off any sort of an alarm in most admins' brains as, okay, maybe we should shut that off since we're not using it. A lot of them just disregard it and they leave it open, but it's a huge attack surface.
In reporting, do you just show them, you give them copies of it?
So yeah, that was one of the other things that I had Alias go into it. Is there's a button over here. It says all. Make sure you have valid memory resources available on your machine because
out in VMware, yeah.
yeah, this is going to take every single one of the results, no matter how many pages. So this one, how many pages did this one have? That one's, yeah. Oh, that's because we ran the search. Let me clear this.
It'll give you a little warning. If there
So
are more than 500 results, it'll say, are you sure you want to do this? Because it takes a long time. And guys that like to run it over a network share, like to pull up the page over a network share, it takes a long time. So
I don't normally do that, but when I do it in production.
And you ask me why it's running so slow, or why
So-
it's broken.
This
This
is
is-
already vended.
But so basically a 5-page report, you can put all of those on the same page and print it out to a PDF, put it in your report. It looks really good, gives them a good, solid document that they can refer back to. And when they perform this test again in the future, they can compare those and say, okay, we got rid of this many web resources. We're doing good. We're making movement. We're making progress. And these are things that we need to be able to show ourselves as being useful. So this is, again, not an exploitation tool set. This is an enumeration, a discovery tool set, but it will give you and your organization a much higher visibility of the attack surfaces that most of us are just ignoring.
Second question. Is there any way, any plans to customize the headers on the documents so those of us who run pen testing companies can put the name of our company there?
We can definitely
The header
do
of
that.
which ones? Like the HTML report?
Like something that you can tack
HTML
in.
report would be the most useful, or even the MAP report.
For you, Bill?
MAP.
I'll do that.
This is an open source project, okay? Completely open source. You can take it, play with it, fork it, do whatever you want, learn how to use it, play around with it. If you see, I'm not going to mention the word dongle. Okay.
I don't want to fork it so hard.
Red card.
You can seriously take this and just
Trademark it.
help us to build it better. Trademark it.
Put your name on
It will
it.
always be open source.
GPL3, thank you.
Yes.
What were you going to say earlier? You had a question.
I don't know. Maybe who would you use for your
But
database
requests
of
like that, post
default
them.
passwords that you end up showing? Try this.
That's actually a completely different project that is running, enumerating certain sites for that kind of information. So, CERT, where else do we pull it from? Just
CERT, PhoneLit, a bunch of the big databases that you're probably already aware of that have all these.
I've been
Most of
using-
them have all been combined into
Yeah,
this.
Phenolit and a few other places, but a lot of times I end up just Google searching for this device
Yeah.
default creates.
Right.
And
That's what I was doing too. And it was frustrating because I was like, every time I've got to go back out to this website and do this search to see what my default
I have
passwords
a
are
list of my own of stuff I commonly see, but
that aren't out there. We'd love to have them and put them into that too.
I'll see what I can put
So
together.
if you can
Thanks,
put them into a
Thanks.
file, we'll pull them and continue to parse it, over a period of time and pull those in. But very helpful tool. Hopefully you guys will get some use out of it, and we'll put this back on. This is why Hackett and Georgia were late this morning. He was bringing in the West Virginia short bus. So, summary, this really saves a lot of time and helps you do we've already pretty much covered all this, but that's hopefully the tool will generate some momentum. We're really wanting to try to get people out there testing it so we can make it better. But it saves me a ton of time when I'm running an assessment.
So you did this slide right now?
Hmm?
You did this slide right now?
This is actually my presentation.
Sweet.
Yeah. If you guys have any comments, praise, questions, cash donations.
And enraged hate mail and insults, you can send them right through to me. Yeah. It's all my fault if it's bad. Ready?
Well, you're the bad guy. He's the good guy, right?
Thank you
Yeah,
guys.
all right.